Right. Hi, guys. Welcome to this live stream, whether or not you're watching this now when participating or in replay. And I hope you are doing really well. So I decided I'm going to switch it up to a headset for today and see if the microphone quality is better with that. And we'll just wait for a few people to roll in. I know it's super late as of now, and it seems notifications aren't working as well either. Hi, Scotty boy. How are you doing? Perfect time for California, perfect time for Australia, perfect time for parts of Europe, perhaps even perfect time for the East Coast still. But yes, it is going to be on the later side. And I wanted to talk about a few things today. You got my notification. That's great. Um, I don't think people are getting them necessarily. Some people commented they weren't necessarily getting them, but yeah, let me just check. So I'm assuming the microphone works this time, right? Let's just see. Yeah. Okay, great. See, oh, perfect. Okay, seems to be working this time. So we'll stick with this headset for now for this live stream. And yeah, so hi to Scotty Boy. Hi to Truth is Weirder Than Fiction from Holland. Okay, yes. Holland, that would be 6 a.m. in the morning, very early for a Saturday, but really happy you tuned in. If you're here, just give it a thumbs up, even if you watch it in replay. It always helps just for, support, moral, mental, and algorithm support. I look great. Yes. Thank you, Scotty Boy. Always nice to hear. So first and foremost, I want to say this month, actually like all month long, but October is typically my anniversary. Anniversary of what? Of 8 years. And in October 2017, I actually, yeah, had this business for the very first time. It's obviously changed since then. It's evolved. It went through a lot of different stages. We had 2020 in between. We had a lot of things in between, but I want to say for almost a decade at this point, we've been pretty much doing this. Not always on YouTube. We have been doing other things. First, I think I was more present on Instagram, and that was before the censorship on a lot of those platforms. Clearly, but yeah, people were more like on Instagram and Facebook and those type of platforms. I mean, I'm still on there, don't get me wrong, but I think everyone can just kind of feel how something really changed over, the past few years on there. Like posts aren't getting seen necessarily, or just in general, people aren't even on there anymore, right? Like I know a lot of my friends have kind of just gone off Facebook, for example, or just shut down their Instagram accounts. So, yeah, a lot of things have changed since then. But oh my gosh, for 8 years, 8 freaking years, we've been doing this. And then I want to say the first time I came on YouTube with my old channel, which was shut down a few years ago, was in March 2019. So, 2019. Yeah, 2019. So basically, it's also been a while, clearly. And then today, YouTube on this particular channel where you're watching from reminded me that I'm actually having my 3-year anniversary on this new uncensored channel. So great, always good. So there's a lot of celebrations going on. But yes, welcome if you're here, and I hope everyone's doing all right. So I wrote down a few things I want to talk about as per usual. If you have anything you want to talk about, you can always pop it, in the comment section or just comment in general. I'm looking a bit awkward in this one because I kind of switched to a different room for this one. I just felt more comfortable recording it here. And I hung up my painting. So this one is a painting with a peacock feather, and it has some lapis lazuli rocks on it. I actually glued them on there, but yeah, this is actually my own creation right there. And I've been trying to get more into just like drawing and painting and just in general, but it can be hard to find the inspiration sometimes. So anyhow, yeah, it's just sometimes it's more comfortable to be like in this corner than on the other one. Hi to hi as well. Yeah, so basically I want to talk about the concept of keys again, because keys have been coming up. I want to talk about why this particular time, the pre Halloween and also Halloween period, is actually a very strange time, let's put it that way. It's more attacks that are happening, and a lot of things also shut down. So, one of the new age perceptions is that the veil is thinning and this and that, whatever. But actually, a lot of things, a lot of dark things usually go on around this time. And I started noticing it, I want to say for sure 2 years ago in October 2023, where things just massively changed, not just because of what was happening in the world, but just in general, something like just shifted. But for sure, it's probably been going on before that because I also had like things happen in my own personal life. I want to say in 2016, 2017, where October, November were always that time of year where, things are just strange. Like, there's a lot of funky stuff going on. And I want to briefly discuss why that is, like, why darker things are happening in terms of why we feel more attacked during this time of year. So if you have like your own experiences with that, definitely drop them below. Um, Also, another thing, I actually have to pull up the post because it has to do with something that an acquaintance posted, and it's about words and how words can really shape our reality. So let me just pull that up right now if people are still dropping in. No blue couch. No, this couch is greenish. So the blue couch is right there in the other room. I do like the blue couch too, but I don't know. The painting has a little bit of blue in it, so we're not getting rid of the colors here. Um, Things changed completely from October 2023 for me too. Yeah, something really I'm trying to still read on it, what exactly and how exactly it shifted, but something massively shifted, and it was definitely what was going on in the world was reflecting that. But it wasn't the only thing, because it happened in a lot of other countries too, so I'm not just talking about, like, the entire Gaza conflict, whatever, but that was definitely a reflection of a lot of things that happened where everything just kinda shifted. So, I will get to, questions in a second. I'm just trying to pull up this one post here. Also, what I want to say is there is the Intuition Master Course, so Activate Your Intuition is live, has been live for a little bit already. But it's out there for people who really want to tap into their intuitions. If you're really curious about how you can psychically read on all these things, you don't always have to follow people who do it or take their word for granted, including mine. But if you just want to read on your own things in the world, you want to read on your personal situations, you want to read on political situations, you want to read on why did the flood in Timbuktu happen or what's really going on here and there and whatever, you can. I have various different techniques where you can activate your intuition, where you can really tap into it. It's not just for beginners and it's not just for advanced people, it's for every single one. It's actually a massive course. Once again, didn't expect it to be that massive as it turned out to be. But it's very effective. It has three different remote viewing techniques as well, in addition to other types of psychic techniques, some that may be known to some people, but a lot of them are actually not. And so I think it's a pretty unique piece in and of itself. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link below this video too at the end, or you just go to the website. Okay, so the time, let me just go through these notes here as well. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about Ozempic too, because Ozempic kind of came up. Not that I've ever taken any of these, but I'm starting to notice that people who actually are taking them are changing too, and it's a bit freaky and eerie. Okay, let me just go into that one question here that we have. After my awakening, I have received many memories of different realities, all the way back to the beginning of all reality, but I can't figure out why I got the. Do you have any thoughts? I don't know in what context. Like, are you saying when you were trying to astral travel on it, or when you were like what context exactly? Like, did you get them all at once in one session, or just like slowly and surely? I think we have to do when where in whatever setting it happens, we have to always discern if it's something trying to just show us something that's not necessarily right. So you always have to use discernment in whatever you're getting. If you do think those memories are right, then you're just, I would dig further into them and try to get more, because you're saying to the beginning of all reality. What's the beginning of all reality? Does it start here? where we are right now, or is it somewhere like did you get visions or insight on source or wherever you originate from? Um, I got them from magic mushrooms that open up. Okay. My personal Akashic. Um, yeah. So I think the journey always goes deeper, to be honest with you. And but that is interesting. Trying to read this other message. Um, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on those things. I think you always need to I think you can always dig deeper, and try to dig even deeper into where everything started because when you especially when you're under the influence of those things, it gets so complex, right? Like it's just like one reality after another. It's kind of like this labyrinth reality. Um, and then the trip's almost over, right? Because it only lasts a few hours. So I think you could probably dig deeper. But I don't have like any thoughts on this in particular because I don't know what exactly it is that you saw. I think it's going to be different for every single person. Okay. Um, maybe we should start with the word because I found that really interesting. So an acquaintance had posted the Spanish word for work is trabajo, and it comes from the Latin verb tripaliare. No idea how you pronounce that. I don't think anyone really knows how you pronounce Latin these days, which means to torture or to inflict pain. This verb is derived from tripalium, an instrument of torture made of three sticks used to punish slaves. And basically, it means so the Spanish word trabajo is basically slaving away. And it's so interesting how, because when I don't know much about like the Spanish culture, but when you go to countries that speak Spanish, such as Latin America and a few other parts in the world, it's always about slaving away. Like in a lot of cultures and countries, working is associated with slaving away, never really having time, like never really having the time to actually think about how money can be generated, but you always have to be working hard, working hard, working hard, all of that. And so that's interesting that certain words actually put a spell on that reality instead of, you just being in a relaxed state and having money come to you, such as it happens in other cultures. And then there was this one comment beneath, which I found even more interesting. And it came from someone who does have a Slavic name. So I'm assuming they are Slavic. And he is saying, that is why it's good to stay away from the languages designed for enslavement and harvesting of energy from humans. In most Slavic languages, the word for work comes from care, meaning taking care of something or someone or another person. It also has sound combinations which show it's about channeling. He calls it channeling divine light into what the person is doing. So I'm assuming if you were to translate, because this I don't think that's really what it means translated, but maybe someone Slavic and can confirm what the word work means really. Um, it's no accident. People used to sing when they work there. That was the norm. Gathering to work together was as much about singing together. But I'm not really sure if that's true because when you go to what's former Soviet Union and everything, a lot of them are also really kept down. Like a lot of those cultures, that you talk about pretty much everything that's Eastern Europe at this point, right? Like you talk about, well, it's not Czechoslovakia anymore, but like Czech Republic, Slovakia, you talk about Hungary, you talk about, well, Hungary used to be with Austria more together, but you talk about like all of those, like Romania, Bulgaria. But I don't know if those are Slavic languages, but you really talk about everything. Poland, it's not necessarily like they're also swimming in abundance. So I'm sure somehow energetically they're still being kept down somehow because a lot of those try to go more to Western Europe because in Western Europe you have more of that work abundance or monetary abundance or whatever. Not necessarily the happiness, but I'm not sure you really have that in Eastern Europe either. So, yeah, but it was just interesting how they started to talk about languages and what it means. And, I know more personally, I don't know much about Slavic languages, but I do know more about the Spanish language just because I've been studying it for a while. And then also, um, the Central American culture and some Southern American cultures, and it is true that a lot of people there are always slaving away. And it's interesting that it's basically ingrained in the words that they use and all of that, which got me thinking to a word in German that could also mean similar. So in German, you have different verbs for the word work, and one of them is called, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a translation for it, but it's called malochen. So the German word malochen basically means to work hard. And I looked up the origin. Supposedly, it does come from a Yiddish word meaning work or labor. So something originating from ancient Hebrew, which was interesting because it shows the connection between the German language and how many, like how large the Jewish population really was, before World War II and everything that happened there. But you do have a few words in German, and this particular word, malochen, which I never used, but my mother would use that sometimes because she comes from a certain area in Germany where you use it more. That has never resonated with me on an energetic level. Like even when I was growing up, when I was a kid, and she used to use that word somehow, I'm like, it doesn't sound good. It sounds actually really bad. Like I just didn't like the way it sounded, and I think energetically it probably carried over. So there's going to be more than one word in certain cultures that mean working. But I think in the Spanish language there might actually only be that one word. Okay. Thanks. Maybe I should go. Yeah, you can always go deeper with whatever you're doing. There's always more depth to it, and that's where it gets confusing because you can always go deeper and deeper and deeper. But yeah, I found that funny. Words in general. If anyone has a word that they want to put below, where they mean that's how people are being kept down somehow. So this was more in regards to working because my friend was talking about it. But I'm sure you have that for almost every scenario, right? Sure you can think of something. Um, I was thinking about how we should talk about the time for witchcraft is right now. Yeah. So this time of year is always very strange in general. I don't think we can really deny that. I mean, I don't know. I just feel for sure the past few years haven't really felt that much lighter overall, but also before like 2020 or 2023, this time of year has always felt a bit strange and off, and it's very likely just being pushed even more into that direction, because of the entire Halloween traditions that are playing out and all of that. But basically, right now, I do think that if someone or something were to attack you even more and you don't really have your guard up, let's put it that way, this would be a time where you want to be extra careful and extra wary of those things. So just putting it out there for people who think, I know I'm personally always under attack clearly when you do this type of work. And I actually know very clearly that last year someone had put a massive attack on me during this time specifically. So it was like end of October, beginning of November, because it kind of stretches into, the Day of the Dead, which is around November 1st, and maybe even a bit further, November 2nd and 3rd, and all of that. So you just want to be very careful with from now, I want to say mid October or beginning of October until beginning of November. Um, even a bad intention can turn into a form of attack. Let's put it that way. With the energy that we're dealing with right now, this is why I'm always so careful about telling anything to anyone these days, specifically the past couple of years, but also before that already, because your intention can be as great as it should be in regards to you wanting to do something for your own life or you wanting to start like something new. But as soon as a person finds out about it and they hold some sort of grudge against it, or even if they subconsciously aren't aware of their own feelings and emotions, let's put it that way, they can still project something on it that just blocks the entire plan or kind of just makes it seem almost impossible to do. You get the point. So I do think right now, because we're dealing with accelerated energy, for the lack of a better word, it's probably easier, to just keep a lot of things to yourself, as bad as it sounds. And especially during this time of year, this would be the time. where if someone has a grudge against you or has like some bad intentions or an actual attack, which happened in my case, they were using even some sort of sacrifice tools and everything. When they're doing it this during this time of year, it's going to be a bit more amplified than during other times of year. It's not like this is necessarily the month of witchcraft or the month where the witches come alive or anything. That for sure they're going to be alive during other times of year too. But I do think, just in general, because the collective is all in there, they're still pretty much into this entire Halloween spirit. And oh my gosh, we have to dress up the kids. We have to do this type. The more people participate in it, no matter if it's for fun or not for fun, the more it feeds into this darker undertone that goes with this entire holiday period or whatever, right? And you see that especially also around the December time, where, right now, this entire holiday thing is really much opening up, especially here in the US. So you have the Halloween time, and then you have the Thanksgiving time, and then you have the Christmas time, or whatever people want to celebrate according to their own religion. So the next 2 months can be really intense. And I usually always find um, the toughest arguments that I have ever witnessed in public, like actually witnessed in public for the past 10-ish or 12-ish years or so, are usually around November, around Thanksgiving, not necessarily even around Christmas, but really around that Thanksgiving time. So that's another time of year that can be tough for some people. And I mean, if you're not here, it might not be the case for you, but I do think for a lot of in the US, it is the case simply because it's just such like the entire traditions are more brainwashing than anything, right? Like people need to be happy and all of that for absolutely no reason. So anyhow, this time of year, I would say the next few weeks until the beginning of November or so, just be extremely aware that more attacks could come through, or if someone like is not, I don't want to say hold a grudge against you, but if someone is just not on your side, you just want to be aware of those things. Let's put it that way. That's the best way I can describe it. And I have experienced that in my own reality. And it's just because we're dealing with the amplified energy that you usually wouldn't have. You might not have this in September or August. It's just a different expression of it. So yeah, if anyone wants to talk about anything, pop it in the chat. Let's get the interaction rolling. I know it's pretty late for most people, and perhaps too early for other people, but just trying to go through some of the notes I'd written down here. Oh yeah, another thing is it can be also hard to find clarity during this time of year. And I find clarity usually comes a bit later. So I don't know if this again has to do with all these strange portals and energies that have opened up, or if it's just I mean, I do feel there's like some dark portals that have opened up, especially during this time, during like October, November. Or if it has to do with other things, might be worth reading on too. But I find once all of this is over, the entire drama and mess that goes with the holiday period, like January, February, March are usually the times of year where you would be able to find more clarity. Um, and that's interesting. Like to me personally, that's just something that I have noticed from other years where I was like, things have just happened, and I'm like, ah, strange. Because some people like to get like psychic readings around this time of year and all of those things. And for me personally too, I remember there was a year in particular before I was on this journey where there were like all these psychic fairs and everything. They're usually here where I am. They're usually either October, November. That seems to be a pretty popular time to have them, or they're going to be like March, April, May, and then some in the summer, but not so much in the summer. Um, and so I remember this one particular year, I wasn't like in a great situation, like it was in regards to moving, like having to move from one place to another, like apartment wise. And I think I had three different readings on it, even like by three different people, because I had attended the psychic fair and I was going from like one reader to another. That's basically how they were set up here. And I was just really so desperate in finding an answer and a solution to this entire thing. But it was almost impossible to find clarity on it. And I remember it was particularly like October, November as well. And like every single reading that I was getting, was resonating a little bit, like certain aspects of it, but for the most part, it wasn't very helpful. And then a decision had to be made pretty clearly around December or even like mid-December or so, and then it was just whatever. But it just reminded me it can be very hard to find that type of clarity right now. Just for people who are wondering about that, like why things um, seem so blurry right now. Let's put it that way. There's another thing that happens, and this is more like a personal thing, but I found it also funny because I was talking about my doorbell missing, right? I don't know if you guys saw the last live stream or the live stream before that. I forgot. It's already been a little while. But basically, there was a doorbell that went missing that wasn't at my, usually it was on my door or something. And so, with that same particular door, I tried to replicate keys, just try to make a regular backup key that I was able to give to a friend, just as a backup. And so, for the sake of it, it was almost impossible to make a backup of this key that actually worked, that could turn the door. And the key would usually look like this. So, it has these combs on it. I'm not sure you can really see that in the camera. And then what I ended up doing, so I went to like two or three different people, like call them key makers, call them whatever. And what I ended up doing is, because I was in one of those well, and I was just in a regular store, like some sort of Staples or whatever. And there was a machine where you can make a copy of the key. And so I was like, you know what? Like these two, three people I went to, like actual humans, weren't able to make a copy of this key. So let me just put it in the machine and see if the machine can make a better copy of it. And then at first, I thought I had put it in the wrong way because these combs disappeared. So I don't think the camera's really picking up on it, unfortunately. But there were combs here, and they're completely gone. Right, like comb basically just means those little like wave thingies on it. Yeah, you can't really see it in this particular camera. So anyhow, what the machine ended up doing is it kind of did these things, but it didn't do the combs right here. And I was like, "Oh, no, like, the machine forgot half of the entire key. I need to get a refund from the machine now somehow, so you have to call the number or whatever." And, I was like, "Okay, whatever. Let's just go home and see if it works. Maybe it will work." So, jokingly, I put it in the door, and it actually worked. It was the only key that worked, despite the missing combs and everything. So, I told my friend, because at this point, I had gone back and forth with my friend for about a week because I was really unable to make a key copy and everything. I told my one friend, and I was like, can you even believe this? After running around for 1 week in my neighborhood trying to replicate this key, I have now a key copy that doesn't even look like a proper key, but that actually turns the door. And he was also very astonished by that. And then he was saying something like, "This machine knows something that we don't know, and these are the secrets and glitches of the matrix." Because we were talking about how this has to do, the key maker and the matrix and the keys and all of that. And then I was like, "Yeah, maybe the comb, like the little things on it, the waves on it, is just a distraction or something. Like maybe you don't even really need those." And the machine was picking up on what was used the most with this key, or so, I don't know. It was very strange. Like the entire situation was very, very strange. So just thought I would share that because I thought it was quite baffling how a machine wasn't basically duplicating the key, but it still created a key that worked, unlike actual people who were trying to duplicate it with whatever tools they have. And at the end of the day, it didn't work. The machine was tuned into the new setup. Well, the door is pretty old, so yeah, it's just quite strange. The entire situation was very strange, but it reminded me of the Keymaker. If you watch one of those Matrix movies, the Keymaker is, I forgot which part the Keymaker's in exactly, but it kind of just reminded me of that entire scenario because one Keymaker I went to also looked he was older and he was Asian looking, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is an actual Keymaker," just like the Matrix movies. But he couldn't duplicate it. It was strange, and he was very upset about that too because he's a very good key maker. Like he's actually specialized in those things, and I went back and forth with him like 2 or 3 times until I just gave up. I'm like, "Okay, it's whatever. I feel bad for this guy, like, he can't replicate this key. I have to go somewhere else." But it was just yeah, I know. It's if you really think about the deeper meanings of this, it was very astonishing. Um because now what we're facing right now is jobs and everything being shoved off to AI, and like we're talking about the AI takeover of everything. And it kind of was like, what did I write down? I wrote some notes down. Was it here? I forgot. Um, I forgot where I wrote the note down. The machine knows something humans do not, but then also that the machine like something like the machine is never going to be able like if you really look at it right from the perspective of right now we're dealing with humans that are being replicated too, right? Like call them background characters or just clones or actually whatever. They might never look the same as the actual original, and you can pick up on that energetically when you see a person and they just have this empty stare or the empty eyes, or they don't really have the same life that you have. They're really just meant to fill in the background or fill in the world so that we don't feel as lonely, as walking souls among us and everything. But so they're never going to fully look exactly the same, but they're still going to have the components that can somehow work in this world. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's how you can interpret it, right? Like the key was able to turn the door, whereas the others weren't necessarily able to do so. You just have to like transfer it over into wisdom that we can use in today's reality. So that's kind of how I saw it when that situation happened. But yeah, I think there were a lot of messages in that in and of itself too, because obviously when keys don't work and apartment doors don't want to turn, there's a message in that too. It's not yet time and those type of things. But yes, those are just the messages we need to pay attention to. That was one, and I found that quite interesting. And then I had written down something here, which I just saw. Um, there's a lot of things happening. Oh, so yeah, it's actually the same thing. So when you go to using a laptop or using a desktop or whatever, a laptop is useless without the programs that you actually need, right? If you need an editing program, if you need like a Word or Excel program and you don't have that, a laptop's actually pretty useless when you look at it that way. Now, when you had all these programs, let's just say Adobe Photoshop, those programs, has anyone ever worked with those? Because I always work with those. I've worked with those since 2013 and on. When you went to the first version of Photoshop that was around then, all you needed to do is type in a key to activate the program. And I think that went on until 2017. So this is for everything that Adobe ever created. But also if you have like Microsoft Word or Excel, they also used to have a key. They still have a key. They're not necessarily subscription based only. Now, since 2019 and on, I want to say the entire Adobe suite changed it to monthly to subscriptions, meaning it's not even about keys anymore. It's not even about having the key to activate a program, but they really want to they really changed everything to like a monthly subscription where you need to continue feeding into that system. Obviously you need to pay monthly, but if you again transfer it over into the reality of maybe it's the same with our body, our energy, and reincarnating without keys, but now they're trying to push it into like this lifelong subscription model. Maybe that's what the entire what agenda was about in 2021 and 2022, where people got the thing shot up into their body, where it changed. Back then it was all about having the key. How do we have the key out of here? Do we have the key to go to wherever we need to go, or like the next level or different realities? But now, perhaps the AI that's running this reality, that's been running it for a long time, they changed it from this having a key to log into something into no, now you need the monthly subscription. Otherwise, you can't even access this reality or access this program at all. So maybe they're trying to do that with our energy, with our lives in general, trying to put us on lifelong subscriptions. And then the question is, what exactly is a subscription? Like, what does it transfer over? Right. At what cost does, like, what's the cost for this subscription, and how how does it show up in your reality if it's not a key anymore? So quite philosophical questions. Sorry if these are boring for some people, but I thought it was worth writing down. um Another friend was talking about the three-eye atlas comet or something that was going on. Hold on, let me look up the exact name. I don't know. Three-eye atlas? Yeah, that's what it was. I don't know if this is something that is actually there, though. I have not had the time to really look deeper into this or kind of just read on this, so maybe it's worth reading on it. But this seems to be very emphasized by New Agers, so I'm already wary of that. Let's put it that way. Supposedly, the comet reaches the closest point to the sun around October 30th, and then around December something, it's supposed to make like a very close pass or whatever around Earth. I don't know what's really going on with that. But according to New Agers, like, this is gonna shift us into a new reality. So, I'm just guessing maybe it does have some sort of repercussion energetically on people. Like, maybe it's supposed to change people's energy. Maybe I don't know if it's supposed to hypnotize them more or actually change them in a different direction, but it could be worth reading on that. I haven't really looked into this. This is, like, something that, yeah, I haven't even really heard about until it was mentioned by this friend, and I was like, "Oh, okay, interesting." Yeah, it could be that this is also what's causing chaos right now, right? Because there's a lot of chaos energy in the air. Um, the concept of there being keys to our DNA comes to mind as you're talking about it. Yes, yeah, they have switched up the DNA with the you know what for sure. The DNA might hold information of us in reality. hmm But how are they switching this? Are they switching this to a subscription model somehow? And what's the subscription, right? Like, are they holding people's soul pieces somehow? What I usually see when I work on people is that some of these are held in whatever would resemble the hell realm, like this flame reality. Is that the subscription model? And if so, I do think they can definitely get out of there, like be retrieved from there. Or is there a different type of subscription model that's happening? I just had to think about that because whatever is playing in our like if you really go into all these programs that they've created, the Windows program, right? Windows already says it. Like if you really go to the PC laptop program, Windows, like they're already showing us, they're already telling us, they're already disclosing to us with that Windows, what's the window here? You know what I mean? So they're already showing a lot just with that. And also the entire program of Photoshop in and of itself, being able to alter people's faces and people's textures and just photos in general, being able to remove things from a scenery, from a landscape. Like the moment that came around, that was a huge disclosure too. They are able to alter our reality, which they do constantly. And when people pick up on that, then you talk about something that's the Mandela effect, or you talk about, oh, this person, for example, this person was wearing a green sweater the last time I thought about it, but no, in the picture it's red, or this person looks slightly different than I have in memory from those type of things. So I think there's a lot they're already disclosing in these programs. Let's put it that way. And when they switched from a key model, meaning needing a key to type it into a monthly subscription model only, then that also means they changed something in reality in general. But yeah, I just had to think about it because I was switching from one PC to another where I was like, actually, a new PC. is that worthless when you don't have access to any of these programs. And then the only way you can really gain access to these programs these days is pretty much just with the subscription model they want you in. And so I was like, wow, that's crazy. A lot of things have changed because I hadn't changed my setup, I want to say in like 6, 7 years or so. And that has changed because that's also around the same time. If we go back to 2017 or so, that's exactly around the same time reality has completely changed, right? We had 2020 in between. Some people are saying in 2017, that's the actual reset that happened, not a few years later. So there's so much that goes into it. And I feel it's really displayed in our reality through those things too. Subscription model, maybe it's a continuous extraction of our energy rather than a huge one-time harvest. Yes, yeah, right. The wars in the past. Yes, no, I do think so, that they're trying to suck our energy. Just trying to read from notes here. Our energy, I wrote down body too because it felt even the bodies can be on this continuous subscription model. If you look at people who put lip filler and Botox in their bodies, just as an example, or who are on this Ozempic and other dietary things, it's always a continuous thing. They don't just stop after one, right? Like people continuously go back to get lip filler and Botox because they're basically addicted to it. They can't function without unless they finally stop with it. And so in that sense, they're putting their body on this like monthly or once a year subscription thing. And then also energy though. Um Was a continuous extraction of our, yes, of our energy. I do think so. Now, how can they do that with the energy? So that's just one thing, right? Are they doing it with the people around us, or are they actually putting up all these machines that they created? Um, did I talk about it in one of the videos? I don't even know. There were like a few videos I wanted to record these past few weeks, and I didn't have the chance to do it yet. So I just have to perhaps do it in the upcoming week or so. But basically, no, I think I did mention it in one video where they were putting up all these EMF radiation machines. I can't really say what it is on this live stream, but like the cell phone tire type of things that are definitely trying to extract our energy or just mess with it. But I also think it could have to do with the reincarnation cycle, that it's not as easy as it was before, where we had keys. Let's put it that way. So I just wrote down like lifelong subscriptions somehow, but it would probably play out in different ways. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the word thing. Oh yeah. Here's another one. Um. Okay. Is this true? No, I don't think this is true. Um. Okay. Hold on. One Earth year in Neptune. I don't know. Okay. Um. One Neptunian year, meaning 1 year on Neptune, which is the planet Neptune, is about 165 Earth years, something like that. But I think I came across something else where it was saying, uh, see, I should have sorted these screenshots beforehand. Um, 1 year on Neptune kind of felt like 10 years or so. I don't know. 1 year on Neptune feels way longer than a year on Earth, something like that. Like some weird scientific article had something on Neptune where I was like, "Oh, interesting." Because that reminded me, I know not everyone was interested in that astrocartography video, even though I find it a very interesting thing, but I do get that it's complicated for people and not everyone wants to dive into that. But if you are interested in traveling and going to places, you should be interested in it because it already shows you beforehand what the energy of a place can be like. A year on Neptune is twice as long as a human life. This is what the article is saying, and that how long is a year on each solar system planet? So this kind of reminded me of if you actually visit your Neptunian line, which you all have that, you just have to find out where yours is. Does a year there maybe feel longer than a year would in other places in the world? Was just something, um, yeah, that I found interesting. So, 1 year in Neptune seems twice as long a- as a human life, or something like that. So it could be that certain places it seems more stretched out. Again, this entire perception of time, when you're really tapped into it, you can feel like 1 minute can go by and it can feel like hours, right? Um, but yeah, I was just thinking about it because if you also look at it this way, like perhaps if the planets don't exist outside, but they're really more kept inside, but the scientists are saying they have to be outside somehow. So let's just say they're more like here inside. This could really mean that if you go to those different places where the lines are, you might have that energy where time just feels more stretched than usual. I found that really interesting. Okay. There was another one saying that Moses is perhaps Pharaoh Akhenaten. So they're trying to mix up the entire biblical history with the Pharaonian Egyptian history, and it's just becoming more and more of a mess the more distance you are. I really do think they're trying to erase history in general. Like whatever we've known about history, they're really muddling it up a lot these past few years already, really trying to confuse people more and more too. So that there's like almost no way to even find out what's real, what isn't real, and all of those things. But yeah, um, all right, you guys. So, is there anything in particular that you wanted to address? Because I can go through one comment after another, but I feel this should be like an interaction somehow. Um, Very clean insight seems to be true. It's true. I visited my Neptune line for a course and I learned more in 1 week than I could have in years. I don't think I've actually studied on my Neptune line yet. Every time I'm drawn to a Neptune place, I do always feel I should go back and just stay there for longer and study something or maybe immerse myself more into it. So it does have an energy of studying. I do have to say that. It's quite nice. But unfortunately, Neptune can also be a bit of an illusion, which I don't know. I mean, it depends on the person. So depends on how you perceive those things. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to find through this comment. There were a few. Oh, yeah, here was another thing. The sun begins to destroy Elon Musk's Starlink satellites. Scientists has just confirmed what many feared. An extremely intense solar storm has struck low Earth orbits and is destroying Starlink satellites one after another. So that's also funny because Elon Musk is a little bit out of the picture these days, right? Have you heard anything new about Musk? Like you used to hear so much about Musk, I want to say a year ago or like the years before that. Not so much at all anymore. Images show how the panels of some satellites begin to melt due to electromagnetic radiation, while others lose their trajectory and spiral into the atmosphere. Elon Musk has acknowledged that more than 40 units were affected in a matter of hours. SpaceX engineers are struggling to restore control, but interference from solar plasma has rendered communication channels unusable. And the thing is also, they were really pushing this Starlink internet, right? They were really pushing it for more remote areas where you basically you never used to have internet beforehand, but now, let's just say you're somewhere. I think one person said they were somewhere in Oregon in the middle of a forest or something, and they had the Starlink, and it was all good. And another person was saying how they're pushing it in some islands that are a bit more remote so that they have internet. But at the end of the day, it's getting destroyed. Um, and so that could also be, another symbol towards them slowly and surely trying to destroy the entire Musk empire. Also with Tesla, what happened with Tesla a lot this year and things catching fire. But we're also in a year where, the fire energy is very present. So it's probably just very heightened. Earth time seems to be going faster. Yes, time has been going faster. I agree. I had a video on that, and there was a person who commented below that video saying how even some sort of Buddhist monks or whatever who would usually record time very precisely with an instrument were saying how nowadays we only have 18 hours of time as opposed to the 24 hours that we used to have. And yeah, or they were saying 18 or 19 hours below it. I don't know. I have to pull that up again. Let me see. There were like a few comments that I received. Of course, you can't find these things when you're trying to look for them. Oh yeah, in theory, the military could build devices everywhere so that it would be impossible to escape forever. Mm, okay. This was in regards to the video that I had, the artificial soul trap and real soul trap, and what happened to Kirk and everything. And I think this is where I was talking about those tower devices that they're building so that some people can access the afterlife, especially certain cultures. I don't think the military or whoever's behind the military, let's put it that way, could build these devices everywhere. I don't. I think they're actually they cannot. Like somehow they can build them in certain spots. Let's put it that way. And they have built them in some of these sacred site spots and everything for a reason, because a lot of the cultures that believe in a form of afterlife and that carry it on, and then the tribes that they're from, all of that, or let's just say, not to say that they're more aware of things, but they're more connected and in tune with the cycles of life, with nature, with those type of things. So that's why they were targeting those areas specifically, and then they're just trying to control and brainwash and just mind control in general the rest of the population, and they already successfully started doing that with the advent of TV and TV programming, and just in general bombarding everyone with EMF here and there and left and right. But I actually don't think that somehow, call it universal law or call it whatever, they're actually allowed to build those devices everywhere. Let's put it that way. And I think that's why you won't find those devices everywhere. You will only find them in certain areas in the world. So that's like an interesting comment that was in regards to that. And then another one was, do you think a higher entity, I guess is what I would call it, will intervene and stop this simulation? I believe the Gnostics believed at some point a god would stop the demiurge, hoping for your thoughts. So I'm not sure you need a higher entity. I don't think it's about this higher entity at all. I think it's about like us stopping something, like people who are here stopping them. And this is exactly why in every single belief system, be it the New Age, be it religion, be it maybe even Buddhism or all these other, there's always talk about higher entity. You need to call in these other, but that's just distraction. I don't think you need anything outside of you to intervene and stop. And I think all those distractions are planted and seeded there for a reason, to keep you distracted from the actual power that you have for people who want to wake up from this and who can stop the simulation. So in short, no, I think you can stop the simulation, that I could stop the simulation, everyone can stop the simulation that's here right now. You don't have to rely on something that's outside of you, such as a so-called higher entity or whatever. Similar with the entire savior narrative, right? Like that's really reinforced in in the entire Matrix movies, like with the entire Neo, the savior, and all of that. If you really look more into that, but yeah. Um, has anyone ever watched the Twilight series? Just out of curiosity, um, because that also, it's all about certain types of saviors that need to save this. Like in every single one of these that mentions like mystical creatures or mentions like some sort of keys that are relevant for the matrix, and they always push it off to a savior mentality, or just like regular people would never be able to do this. So it's quite irritating. October 30th, Earth's EM shield is extremely no. What's an Earth EM shield? I don't even know what that is. Oh, electromagnetic. Yeah, okay. Is that just this year, or or is that in general, like every October 30th? Yeah. Is that just this year? I'm assuming. Maybe that's why they pushed this entire comet narrative to weaken something. But I do have to say, it is starting to feel a bit more off, you know? For sure, the past few years, October, November has felt more off, but it also, like, just, I don't know, something just feels like I feel people can tap into that something will happen or could happen. And I mean, for example, again, pets. If you have small kids or pets, right? Pets, my dog, my pet has not been sleeping well really these past few nights, and it's not something that she ate or didn't eat. It's not something, that's I do think pets in general pick up on energy. They're more attuned to it, right? Like they're more instinctual, so they're more, yeah, like kids and pets, like smaller kids and pets are usually the ones that would pick up on this more. And I have noticed more children like screaming in the streets than usual. So when that happens, it's typically a sign that energetically something's being messed with. Let's put it that way. Um, yeah, I do think something's going on. Um, yeah, and it's hard to really always pay attention to it because there's always something going on, right? Okay, let me see. There was something else that I had written down here. Oh yeah, Ozempic is making people hollow-faced. There's muscle loss, a zombie look. I really been noticing a zombie look with people who've been taking Ozempic, because I do know some people who are openly admitting that they took it. And with one particular, it's almost like she lost her lights and her energy field, even like her entire aura is gone. When I look at pictures of her before she took whatever weight altering substance that she took, and I kind of feel bad for it, because people are taking it because they want to be fitter, but they don't want to put in the work of, doing this over the course of a few years, so they just take it. But now you're dealing with like actual cancer cases and everything, right? Like people are developing cancer from this stuff too, in addition to other defects. So basically, for me, when I compare the pictures of a few years ago where she was more filled in, and perhaps, didn't feel as comfortable, let's put it that way. She had a very bright aura, or a very bright energy feeling. She had a lot of light, let's put it that way. And now, legit, yes, she does look skinnier, but also her face looks very hot. Like there's a lot of wrinkles. Like it's so strange. It makes them look hollow faced and almost zombie like. That's the best way I can describe it. I wish I had a picture to compare the two states with each other. But anyhow, she lost her light, and you had brightness, and now it seems like she's an empty shell of herself, and also strange vibes after taking it. Yeah, and the best part about it is some of these are still teaching about natural weight loss, completely out of alignment with what she teaches, because clearly she didn't lose weight naturally. Like she took some sort of substance to lose it. Those Ozempic peeps all look the same in the face, ghostly looking. Yeah, a sunken face, exactly. Yeah, and you know what it is? This one, holistic person, like, she's a holistic nutritionist, she explained it to me. She was saying that Ozempic actually causes muscle loss, meaning, it's a muscle mass that you usually find, like, around here, it's like a muscle. And obviously, you have the same effect when people take too much Botox and everything, you can barely move their face. But with Ozempic, there's a muscle loss, and the danger with muscle loss as opposed to just the fat loss is the muscle mass is very, very hard to build back up. Like it's almost impossible to build it back up to what it was before. Meaning, if you lose muscle, it's very hard to build it back. You need to have a certain nutrition to build it back, which kind of defeats the purpose of you losing weight to begin with. Let's put it that way. Um, so as opposed to if you were just to burn a lot of fat because you're losing weight naturally, right? Like in whatever way you go on the treadmill like a million times a day or whatever. And then people usually have the yo-yo effect or whatever too. But you know, with fat loss, it might take longer to lose it, but it's not the muscle loss. And with Ozempic, it's the actual muscle loss, and that's going to be very hard to build back up. In addition to actually developing proper diseases and all of that, because it gets to your liver and your kidneys, and who knows what else. Yeah, it's basically rat poison, right? Isn't that what one article was saying, comparing it to rat poison? I don't even know. But yeah, so it's just messy once you start taking it. But that's just what I noticed, that even energetically, they look very different. Like, yeah, like zombies almost. And then the best part is she's teaching about how to lose weight naturally, and when it's very clear there's no way she ever lost weight. Now, it's just such hypocrisy. But that's what we're dealing with. So yeah, um, it's just so funny. I don't know. You want to cry, you want to laugh, do both. Um, all right, let's see. I think there were a few other comments that were interesting. No, can't find them, of course, whenever you need to find them. Oh, yeah. The clone and the clown connection is interesting. Okay, so I had a video from ages ago where I was talking about clones and clowns. When you look at the astral, they have a lot of clowns in it sometimes. I think this video is from like 2 or 3 years ago even. So it's basically a freak show, a clown freak show, like a circus show in the astral right now. And it's been that way since 2021 and on for sure. It's probably always been that way. Okay, 2018 too. But something shifted again in 2020 and on where, from that time, like 2022, 2021 and on, it's really turned into a complete freak show, which is also why it feels just more intense than ever when you try to do journeys or when you just try to read on things. Because it's never like the astral has never looked as chaotic as it does now. Let's put it that way. So when I tap into that, I like back then 2, 3 years ago, there were always these clowns that popped up, and I was like, the clones and the clowns is the same. Like all these clowns are looking the same in the astral. They're just one duplicate after another. And I saw that as these are just all clones of each other, so clones and clowns. And then the person was commenting, also interesting that some people seem to have an innate fear of no, of clowns, even as babies or toddlers, without any related traumatic experience to connect it with. It makes you wonder if this is suggestive of an inner knowing they incarnated with about just how dangerous and destructive cloned beings have been, and continue to be in realms that attract source connected souled beings. Also, wonder if that means a fear of clowns is an indication that you're not one of them, meaning a clone or AI yourself. As in, a fear of clowns could be a reliable marker of a souled being, perhaps. Well, I don't know. It could be. I think the reason, first of all, if you look at a clown mask, the clown mask actually doesn't look that inviting at all. That's what I started noticing, when I examined this clown, like they have the eyes, they have these creepy triangle eyes usually. When you look at a proper, especially now during the Halloween time, just look at when people walk around as actual clowns, they have these triangle things over their eyes, which is already full Illuminati symbology, right? Let me pull up a clown face here just so I can, yeah, depending on, they have like either like these fake tears below, like it's all about triangles and circles and all of that stuff. But clowns don't actually look that clown. They look like zombies too. They have these creepy smiles. The overemphasized red mouth, which the redness of that mouth could have to do with like sacrificing, especially like the sacrifices of children that they sometimes do. That's how you can interpret that, I guess. Some clown masks have like these weird blood-like things. Yeah, it's just, I mean, try to find some clown masks and start comparing them. They don't actually look that great. They look quite creepy, right? So I think it's a combination of clown masks looking creepy in general that freaks kids out, right? That's why kids are scared of that because it's not like a natural, I'm on your side. It's like an actual clown show. But yeah, it was an interesting comment for sure. Another person was saying there's a theory that the Aborigine predate the Africans. So, for example, some people say the Africans were first, and then the Aborigine kind of splintered off and went to Australia, or went to all these different things, and then Australia. And then there's a theory that the Aborigine were here first, which is why they're saying the Aboriginal DNA is the most ancient one. I'm not sure. I think it's the most ancient one in certain parts of the world, but not in each and every one. So we're also not getting the full picture with that. It's very hard to tap into, but they are definitely very targeted, like in addition to other very tribal nations, they've always been very targeted and kept in their own little groups these days and not treated very well from my understanding of what I've seen. Um, oh yeah, there's something about the Egyptian. Oh, someone said cacao use is just caffeine addiction. Spiritual people are in denial. Could be. Cacao does have caffeine. Um, so yeah, anyhow. All right, what's going on here? Um, Connection with clowns and the film watchers. Yes, I do think the clowns are connected to a circus show, which is basically, yeah, the watchers for, yeah, yeah, you could say that. Okay, you guys, does anyone want to discuss anything else? Maybe a few more minutes. Um, oh, I wrote down monkey torture. Mm, I'm not sure monkeys are related to clowns, but I noticed there were more and more of these strange animal torture video. You know, when you go down a rabbit hole, especially when you start watching one reel on Facebook, let's just say Facebook, it's also on YouTube sometimes. You start watching one reel, it just pops up as a suggestion, right? And then all of a sudden you have like a million of those always popping up as suggestions. And so I started noticing they're showing more and more animal torture videos. And I do think some of them are plain AI generated. I don't even think they're real anymore. But I do think they're trying to just disturb people in general with those, like plastering them all over these platforms like Facebook, like social media platforms. Yeah, animal torture where I saw a few videos. I just came across a few videos where they're doing it to dogs in China specifically because they still have the entire dog meat industry there. Where you just don't even want to really see what they're doing to the dogs. But then also I came across some of these videos of monkeys, and I think it's either in Thailand or Vietnam, and I do think some of them are just AI generated. Which is, it's kind of sick, right? Like when they're torturing animals, because animals are basically helpless beings and everything. But they're basically just dressing them up and then making them do things with each other, which is completely like unethical in general. But I just noticed they're having more of these, especially monkey torture videos or accounts of them on social media, and I do think some of them are actually not even real, but I do think it's meant to just disrupt people, like really mess with their energy too. Um, and I just try to always tune them out because I can't even differentiate these days anymore what is really real, what is fake. It's very hard. Like and I feel that's really the world they've been trying to build up with all of these CGI and AI generated stuff and everything that they're pushing. Yeah, I remember the videos back in the day. And even back in the day, because CGI has been around for quite a while, right? At least like 20, 30 years or so. Now, after watching that, now I'm just wondering maybe a lot of them were not even really real that they're showing. So, um, but I think they were really doing that uh, to really mess with people's energies. Just had that as a note down here. Mm, something with time. Yeah, I don't know what else. Oh yeah, how was Earth created? It's always a good one. Someone was talking about the insects and algae, like just underwater plants, how they were created, and I'm like, there's so much that's wrong with that story in general. But yeah, going down that rabbit hole. Anyhow, um, yeah, there's didn't write down more notes than this one. Um, guess we're gonna call it a night if that's all. If there's anything else someone wants to talk about, but thanks for tuning in for sure. And yeah, just be extra aware during this time of year. When I astral project by accident, is that an attack? No. Depends on what happens during me. I don't think when you astral project it's an attack, but I think attacks could be happening. So, um when you try to astral project or astral travel in general, you are making yourself more vulnerable, to being watched and all of those things. So you need to set up the right protection beforehand, and you are making yourself more vulnerable to being attacked. So maybe you're picking up on an attack that came through when you were trying to astral project. A one thing. Yeah, Scotty boy, I don't know anything about this comet, so I can't really say much about it. But what I was saying about it was that a lot of new agers are pushing it. Oh yeah, and we were talking about how it's going to come close to Earth around December something, and how it's going to come close to the sun on October 30th, which is very close right now, like just in a few weeks from now. But there's not much, like, I haven't really had the chance to read on it because I've been distracted with other things going on in my life. I do think it could be messing I think if it's an AI generated thing, like a lot of these things are, um, like let's say it's part of like the matrix machine technology or whatever, I do think that it's meant to disrupt people's energies, which it could be successfully doing already, seeing how a lot of people are losing it left and right these past few weeks or months even. Um, and then when the new agers are saying, "Oh, this is gonna accelerate you into the 5D or a new vibrational state of being." They're just picking up on the entire radiation that goes with this comet. That's the feeling that I have in regards to it. But it could also be something a bit different. Maybe it's a combination of two things. So anyhow, um, yeah, so I think that's pretty much all that we can discuss right now. So you're watching this in replay. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks for everyone who tuned in right now. Um, yeah, and I will hopefully see you very soon again. Maybe I'll keep this headset set up. I'm not sure. It seems to be going better than the microphone before, which is great. And I hope you have a wonderful evening, a wonderful day, however, when you're watching this, and enjoy the weekend ahead as well. Until then, bye guys.